The logging locomotive. As far as steam locomotives go, they aren't exactly the most attractive specimen out there. Kind of the railroad version of the long-standing joke that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. But let's not get hung up on appearances. These engines carved out their own niche in the very lucrative timber industry, and they have an enormous fan base. There were three main types: the Shea, the Heisler, and the Climax. The Cass Scenic Railroad in West Virginia is geared locomotive heaven for people on the East Coast, and they have all three types of geared engines operating. The Climax Locomotive Company was based out of Corry, Pennsylvania, and eventually built about 1,000 locomotives. Most of them had cylinders mounted at about a 45-degree angle, connected to a line shaft running down the underside of the boiler. Then you can get into the strange by logging standards varieties. Some of the earliest Climaxes had a vertical boiler and looked for all of the world like a tent on wheels. Very few of them survive. One example is actually a replica Class A Climax, and it operates near Clarksburg, West Virginia. Welcome to the Locust Heights and Western Railroad. So stop me if you've heard a story like this before. A man buys a caboose for the kids to play on. Then he decides the caboose needs some track to sit on. Then he decides he needs something to pull the caboose around with. So he goes hunting for blueprints and builds his own steam locomotive. Strange but true, this is the backstory of the Mason family. Keith Mason owned a blacksmith shop, and the Locust Heights and Western Railroad soon expanded to fill the family's properties in the mountains. Built in the early 1970s, Mason constructed a replica Class A Climax. The closest real one would have dated to about 1890, very early in the Climax story. The rails are 3-foot gauge, and there's just about 3/4 of a mile of track, with grades in excess of 4%. The operation doesn't get a lot of press, but it is open to the public. Wednesday evenings from June to October finds the railroad offering rides. It may look strange, but it's coal-fired and it operates on steam. And that's all that matters.